to another BookTube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Book. 2 new things, a new angle, well, not a real new angle, but I've got so many library books to show you, and I mean, there's probably about 50 here, and they're all in bags and big piles, and it just would have been so awkward to be sat in a chair doing this, that I just thought I'm just going to stick them on the floor and talk through them that way. And then secondly, I've got a blanket on because I'm really cold. So, as I said, loads and loads of library books to go through. So I recommend you go and get yourself a cup of tea, like she's got herself here. I'm going to put that down in front of me. I burnt my hand on a cup of tea earlier this week, scalded it. You might be able to see, I don't know if you can, but there's like lines in this, and that's because when I did it, I had a jumper on, and as I did it, I went like that to move the jumper up, and the ribbon in the jumper has scarred my arm. Well, hopefully not scarred it, but yeah, very painful. It's fine now, but it feels like sunburn now, but for a long time, oh, it was awful painful. So yes, we're going to work our way through all of these library books. I'm a member of 2 libraries. I feel like every time I talk about libraries, which is probably quite a lot, I mention that I'm a member of 2 libraries. I'm a member of a county library, and then I'm on sort of like a county council lines, so I'm a member of 2 libraries. And yes, I've got some, and that's why I'm keeping them separate. So I've got one pile of books from my library, which is closest to me, and one that is near my work. Let's start with the ones that are near my work, because actually, to be honest, I'm going to start reading one of these probably soonest, because it's a 2-week loan. So a lot of these books, and where I remember, I will say, but a lot of these books are going to be because I've put reservations on them, because I've seen them in people's best books of 2023. We're filming this on the 19th of January, and I've still got, I would say, 12 best books of 2022 videos to watch from people, so I love watching those. So a lot of them will be from that. I've also got a couple of reading projects going on this year, whereby I'm picking out some of the books from Eric Carl Anderson's little books. So he's got 50 books to read if you're a hopeless romantic, and 50 books to read if you're an armchair detective, and I went through and put a few reservations on some books from those. So some of them might appear in there, but I can't remember all of them because, like I said, 50 books. So let's just get going. As I said, I've got one that's due back in 2 weeks' time. It's due back on the 31st of January, so I need to get reading this quickly. And to be honest, somebody mentioned this in my in a recent video of mine, said, oh, have you read this? I think they meant it anyway. They called it the Apartment, so I assumed the Paris Apartment is the same one. I listened to Lucy Foley's audio, the audio version of the Stag Party, the Hunting Party, which was set in between Christmas and New Year. I've really enjoyed it. And I've also listened to, I've also read another of hers set on an island. That might have been the invitation. Oh no, I think that was the guest list. Yeah, so I'm keen to read this, and these sort of things, I haven't read a thriller for a while. So I think I might pick this up tomorrow on my Friday reading vlog, so spoilers. That's coming, so I think I'm going to read that. And then I've got Your Show. I'm very excited about this, and I also think David might be excited about this. So this is a fictionalised account of, so it's about, let me read it to you, because like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff that I don't recall everything. So, from Jamaica to Sheffield to the recently formed Premier League, Yuri rises through the ranks as a referee, making it to the highest level of our national game. But along the way is confronted with the tensions and prejudices, old and new. They emerge as his every move is watched, analysed and commented on. Your Show is an extraordinary novel which charts one man's pioneering efforts to make it against the odds to the very top of his profession. So it's about a black referee. This sort of front cover is very clever because it's black and white, and also referees used to, I don't think they do anymore, wear a black and white stripy shirt. I don't know that much about football, but I thought it sounded a really interesting premise, and I also thought David might be quite into this as well. It's written by Ashley Hickson Lovance, and he used to be a secondary school English teacher, so excited about that. Yeah, I'm going to tell David about that when he's back. I love this. So when I get books out from one of my libraries, a lot of their books come in large font, and I really enjoy those because I need glasses to read, but if I'm in the bath, it means I can still read, but I'm really like this. But some of them which come in large print means I don't even have to wear glasses in the bath. So yeah, so this is Mary Lawson, The Other Side of the Bridge. This front cover is so low, isn't it? It's really like what you'd find like age concern. Let's remind myself, Arthur and Jake are two brothers, sons of a local farmer living in a small lakeside town of Struan in northern Canada. It's the mid-1930s and another world is looming. Arthur is solid, dutiful, set to inherit the farm and his father's character. Jake is younger, attractive, he's not a tractor, mercurial and dangerous to know. A young woman, Laura, my cousin Laura, comes into the community and tips the balance of the sibling rivalry over the edge. This sounds good. By the 1950s, the world has changed, but not enough. Ian, son of the local doctor, is young, idealistic, and far too sure that he knows the difference between right and wrong. Obsessed with Laura, now Arthur's wife, Ian is like a fuse waiting to ignite the emotions around him. That does sound very good. When was this published? Does it say? Oh, 2007. Oh, 2006. So yeah, that does sound good, doesn't it? Then I've got The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes. Again, I feel, I'm trying to remember. This was definitely someone's favourite, but I can't remember whose. I think actually the person who mentioned it, I think it might have been the Poptimist. I think he mentioned, if I'm right, I think he mentioned another book by this author, but they didn't have it in the library, so I got this out, which is The Shining Girls. The girl who wouldn't die. Kirby is lucky she survived the attack. She is sure there are other victims less fortunate, but the evidence she finds is impossible. Hunting a killer who shouldn't exist. Harper stalks his Shining Girls through the years and cuts the spark out of them, but what if the one that got away come back for him? There we go. Another thriller. And then I've got Mad About You by Mari McFarlane. This was, I assume, on Lena's best books of 2022. She loves Mari McFarlane. I've read one Mari McFarlane book. In fact, I think I'm saying Mari wrong. I think it's different. I think I've read It's Not Me, It's You. Maybe I've read You Have Me at Hello. This is about Harriet Hatley, fantastic name for a protagonist, is running away from everything, getting married, her boyfriend's family, her past. A dream house share seems like the perfect place to hide, but her unlikely housemate Cal is no stranger to running away himself, and he's also hiding secrets of his own. Can these two take a crazy risk, face the past, and finally find a reason to stay? I enjoyed the flat share, which is about housemates living together, so that sounds like I would enjoy that too. Then I've got Rainbow. This is a set of stories by Lydia Conklin, a collection of stories that celebrates the humour, darkness and depth of emotion of the queer and trans experience from a new voice that is certain to belong in the canon of contemporary queer literature. What a prediction! In this exuberant prize-winning collection, queer, trans and gender non-conforming characters seek love and connection in hilarious and heart-rending stories that reflect the complexity of our current moment. A non-binary writer on the eve of top surgery enters into a risky affair during the height of COVID. A lesbian couple enlists a close friend as a sperm donor, plying him with a potent rainbow-coloured cocktail. I assume that is where the thing comes from, the title. A lonely office worker struggling with their gender identity chaperones their nephew to a trans YouTube convention, and in the depths of Midwestern winter, a sex-addicted librarian relies on her pet ferrets to help resist a relapse at a wild college fair. That sounds great! So yeah, sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to that. Very much looking forward to that. And then I've got, how would I pronounce this? By Becky Manawatu. And this is, this word is a verb and it means to cry, howl, groan, wail and bawl. And it's an expression of astonishment or distress. And it says, Taukiri was born into sorrow. Owl can be heard in the sound of the sea he loves and hates, and in the music he draws out of the guitar that was his dad's. It spills out of the brutality that killed his father and sent his mother into hiding, and the shame he feels about abandoning his 8-year-old brother to a violent home. But Taukiri's brother, Arama, is braver than he looks. He has a friend and his friend has a dog, and the three of them together might just be strong enough to turn back the tide of sadness. Sounds good, doesn't it? Oh no, I've got another Lauren Bukes one here. So, as I said earlier, I've got a Lauren Bukes one, so I've got two. So I've got The Shining Girls and Broken Monsters. A killer who will tear you apart. Oh, it's actually set out exactly the same as The Shining Girls. She's never hunted a killer as deadly. Something strange is happening in Detroit. Hybrid bodies are turning up. Half animal, half human. For Detective Gabby Versado, they're the work of a twisted monster who surpasses even Murder City's most brutal criminals. And he's only just begun. For failed artist Clayton Broome, they're his greatest work. Life destroyed his dreams. So now he's found new ones. The question is, can Gabby find him before the person she loves most is drawn into his nightmare? That sounds fucking horrible. There we go. The World Does Not Belong to Us by Natalie Garcia Frere. This was the winner of the English Pen Award. Secrets and revenge converge. Oh God, I'm so excited. I love the library. And converge in this chilling tale from a breakout new Latin American voice. Many years have passed since Lucas was expelled from his childhood home by Felisberto and Eloy, the two strangers who arrived uninvited and slowly, insidiously made it their own. Now Lucas is back, fully grown and intent on claiming his rightful inheritance. But he is not interested in the house as it once was, nor in his mother's lovingly planted flower beds, now conquered by weeds, nor in the lavish portraits covering every wall. Lucas belongs to a darker world, one crawling with the only creatures he really trusts, insects. As the house crumbles before his eyes, Lucas turns to the allies of his underground kingdom to help him take revenge. Weaving together past and present like a spider's web, This World Does Not Belong to Us is a spine-tingling story of human greed from a masterful new literary voice. That sounds bloody great. It's not that long either. The writer's from Ecuador. Less than 200 pages. That's being added to the... I'm sort of putting them into piles down here as I sort them. Read immediately, read soon, read when you get a chance. When will that be? And then I've got... I mean, this pretty much does what it says on the tin. This is Vegan Propaganda by Ed Winters. This is a non-fiction book. It says here, and other lies the meat industry tells you. So this is all about veganism and the meat industry and the dairy industry, and Ed Winters, I think this was on Lena's best books of 2022 as well, is a gentle, very engaging soul, and I've flirted with vegan. I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for, God, how long has it been now? 7 years? 8 years? I was never a big meat eater anyway, and then I did a year of pescatarianism to sort of transition me, and then I've been a vegetarian ever since. And I've, like I said, flirted with veganism. Veganuary, I normally take part in. I didn't take part in it this year, I wonder why. Just didn't. And I'm always interested to sort of back up those ideas and maybe find something that's going to push me a little bit more into veganism, so that will be being read as well. And then we got China Mielville, The Last Days of New Paris. And this is set in 1941 and 1950. And in 1941, in the chaos of wartime Marseille, American engineer and occult discipline Jack Parsons seeks to capture and channel the imaginative power of the Surrealists in order to defeat the Reich. His experiment will change the course of the war and the face of the city forever. 1950, a lone Surrealist fighter, Tybalt, walks a new and hallucinogenic Paris where Nazis and the resistance are trapped in unending conflict, and the streets are stalked by living images and texts and by the forces of hell. To escape the city, Tybalt must join forces with Sam, an American photographer intent on recording the ruins. But Sam is being hunted, and new secrets will emerge that will test all their loyalties, to each other, to Paris old and new, and to reality itself. Sounds good, doesn't it? I was going to say, we're getting to the end of this book. We're nowhere near the end of this bag. The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. I think this is fantasy, which is something that I sort of unofficially would like to get into a little bit more this year. That fantasy readers are always so effervescent and enthusiastic about fantasy reading and how much they love reading fantasy. And I've always sort of dipped into it and never really got as into it, and when I've read things haven't been as excited about it, so I'd like to find some fantasy that I get on with this year, if indeed some exists. So this says, when ghosts talk, she will listen. Roper dropped out of school to become a ghost talker, and they sure do love to talk. Now she speaks to Edinburgh's dead, carrying messages to those left behind. A girl's got to earn a living, and I like this, it's very like chatty, and it seems harmless enough, until that is, the dead whisper that someone's bewitching children, leaving them husks empty of joy and strength. It's on Roper's patch, so she feels honour bound to investigate. But what she learns will rock her world. Roper will dice with death, not part of her life plan, and she calls on Zimbabwean magic and Scottish pragmatism to hunt down clues. And although underground Edinburgh hides a wealth of dark secrets, she also discovers an occult library, a magical mentor, and some unexpected allies. Yet as shadows lengthen, will the hunter become the hunted? That sounds bloody great! She's flirting between putting it on the read instantly and read soon pile. V.E. Schwab, same reason for this book, Gallant. And this is 16-year-old Olivia Pryor is missing 3 things: a mother, a father, and a voice. Her mother vanished all at once, her father by degrees, and her voice was a thing she never had to start with. Her only companions are the ghouls she sees and her mother's journal, which captured her mind in turmoil. Near the end of her time at Maryland School for Girls, Olivia receives a letter from an uncle she's never met, summoning her to his estate, Gallant. But when she arrives, she discovers that the letter was years late. Her uncle is dead, and the estate is empty, save for her cousin Matthew and the servants. Cousin Matthew, like in Downton Abbey. Olivia is permitted to remain, but must follow 2 rules. Don't go out after dusk and always stay on the right side of the crumbling wall. But Gallant is a house of secrets, a house sitting in a lonely vigil. A place where the ghouls are powerful. As Olivia searches for answers about her family, her past, she discovers a dark reflection of everything she knew, an ancient realm where ghosts take form and the Dark Master sits waiting for her. That sounds fucking great too. Oh, bloody hell. Well, I mean, there's a reason a lot of these books are the best books of people's years, aren't there? That is the bottom of that bag now. I mean, I've still got 5 books to show you, but that is the bottom of the bag. The Lemon Table by Julian Barnes. Another one of those lovely large prints. Oh, it's got this. I was like, on the inside of the flap, it just says review. Let's have a look. Oh, I just hit myself in the mouth. The Lemon Table is a new collection of short stories from one of the masters of the form. The settings range from 18th century Sweden and 19th century Russia to the Barnet shop, a hairdressing salon where an old man measures out his life in haircuts. In knowing French, an 84-year-old woman, a former teacher incarcerated in an old people's home, begins a correspondence with an author. Dear Dr. Barnes, that enriches both their lives. In Appetite, a woman reads elaborate recipes to her sick husband as a substitute for sex. In Hygiene, an old soldier makes a regular trips to town to do errands for his wife. Stilton from Paxton's, rubber rings for Kilner jars, Elizabeth Arden Power, and then to spend the afternoon with a tart called Babs Tart. Yeah, they sound good, don't they? They sound good. And then I've got, The Terracotta Dog, which is an Inspector Montalbano mystery by Andrea Camilleri. I believe this to be an extremely prolific and famous Italian writer. I wonder whereabouts this falls in the series, because, I mean, you probably don't need to read the series in this sort of thing, like in the same way that Poirot. This was first published in 2004. It doesn't give a list of all the books. But this is a mysterious tete-a-tete with a mafioso, some explicitly abandoned loot from a supermarket heist, and dying words lead Inspector Montalbano to a secret grotto in a mountain cave watched over by a life-size terracotta dog. What the inspector discovers is a 50-year-old crime that takes him, heedless of personal danger, on a journey through Sicily's past and into a family's dark heart amid the horrors of World War II. There we go. How to Gut a Fish by Sheila Armstrong. I think this isn't... I might be saving this until the Irish Readathon. Yeah, Sheila Armstrong is a writer and editor from the northwest of Ireland. On a boat offshore, a fisherman guts a mackerel as he anxiously awaits a midnight rendezvous. Villagers one by one disappear into a sinkhole beneath a yew tree. A nameless girl is taped, bound and put on display in a countryside market. A man returning home following the death of his mother finds something disturbing amongst her personal effects. I was just thinking these must be short stories. A dazzling and disquieting collection of stories, How to Gut a Fish places the bizarre beside the everyday and then elegantly and expertly blurs the lines. An exciting new Irish writer whose sharp and lyrical prose unsettles and astounds in equal measure, Sheila Armstrong's exquisitely provocative stories carve their way into your mind and take hold. So I will hang on to that until the Irish Readathon. Then I've got I'm sure this is short stories as well. God, she's picking up the short stories. Oh, these might be like memoir things. So this is Anne Patchett, These Precious Days. Love these sort of like naked hardbacks, by the way. And this one's got a picture of a dog on it, a painting of a dog. As a writer, Anne Patchett knows that the outcome of her fiction will be. Life, however, often takes turns we do not see coming. Patchett ponders things as she explores family, friendship, marriage, failure, success, and what it all means. Ranging from the personal, her portrait of the 3 men she called her fathers, how a chance encounter with Tom Hanks led to one of the most important friendships of her life, how to answer when someone asks you why you don't have children, to the sublime, the unexpected influence of Snoopy, the importance of knitting, the pleasure to be found in children's book. Each essay transforms the particular into the universal, letting us all see our own worlds anew. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? I don't think I've read anything by Anne Patchett, which is just insane. Let me have a look. Nope. I don't think I have. So there we go. Imagine if this was my first entry to it. Imagine. And then the last one from that pile, but not the last one from that library, is Years of Wonders. My God, this is so heavy. By Geraldine Brooks. And again, this must have been on someone's favourites. Spring 1666, when the Great Plague reaches the quiet Derbyshire village of Eyam, or Eam, I think it is, the villagers make an extraordinary decision. I remember this is true. They elect to isolate themselves in fateful quarantine. So begins the Year of Wonders, seen through 18-year-old Anna Frith's eyes as she confronts the loss of her family, the disintegration of her community, and the lure of a dangerous and illicit love. Based on a true story, this novel explores love and learning, fear and fanaticism, and the struggles of 17th century science and religion to interpret the world at the cusp of the modern era. Yeah, that's real. And I always feel quite interested in, I'm sure it's Eam is the way it's pronounced. Okay, so that's the end of that pile. Let's have a jig around and get the next pile locked in. The next pile, I actually know these ones to be from Books to Read if You're Hopeless Romantic, because when I got them out from the library, I put them at a... Oh no, not that. They might be Armchair Detectives, but these ones are definitely from those lists. I've got the Mitford Murders by Jessica Fellowes. I believe Jessica Fellowes is something to do with Julian Fellowes, who is the creator of Downton Abbey. So this is about a murder that happened on a train in 1919, and Louisa Cannon dreams of fleeing London and most of all her dangerous uncle. Her escape is a job at Astle Manor, where she becomes nursery maid, chaperone and confidant to the Mitford sisters, especially 16-year-old Nancy. But then a nurse, Florence Nightingale Shaw, goddaughter of her famous namesake, is killed on a train, and Louisa and Nancy find themselves entangled with a murderer who will do anything to hide their secret. Oh, so Jessica Fellowes is the author of the Downton Abbey books as well. Not Downton Abbey itself, but the Downton Abbey books. That sounds good, doesn't it? And then I've got the Windsor Knot by S.J. Bennett. On a perfect spring morning at Windsor Castle, Queen Elizabeth II will enjoy a cup of tea, carry out her royal duties and solve a murder. I wonder if these sort of books are having a real moment at the moment, because, I don't know if you know, but the Queen died. Yeah. There is a further blurb, but I think that's all the blurb I need. And then I've got Starling Days by Rowan Hizeu Buchanan. And this is about Mina and Oscar. Mina is staring over the edge of the George Washington Bridge when a patrol car drives up. She tries to convince the officers she's not about to jump, but they don't believe her. Her husband, Oscar, is called to pick her up. Oscar hopes that leaving New York for a few months will give Mina the space to heal. They travel to London, to an apartment wallpapered with indigo-eyed birds, to meet Oscar's oldest friends, to a canal and blooming flower market. This sounds great. Mina, a classicist, searches for solutions to her failing mental health using mythological women, but instead finds a beam of light in a living woman. While she explores what this means, Oscar is called back to the US by his father, and the distance between them forces them to decide what matters most. That sounds great. That sounds really good. And then The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. Stephen is an ideal child of aristocratic parents, a fencer, a horse rider and a keen scholar. Stephen grows to be a war hero, a best-selling writer and a loyal, protective lover. But Stephen is a woman and her lovers are women. As her ambitions drive her and society confines her, Stephen is forced to turn into desperate actions. The Well of Loneliness was banned for obscenity when first published in 1928. It became an international bestseller and for decades was the single most famous lesbian novel. It has influenced how love between women is understood from the 20th century and beyond. I love that front cover. Great. Wordsworth Classics. I used to buy those when I was a student. Then we've got, so these, yeah, then I've got some other ones. These weren't, I can't remember where these will come from. I think this one, some of these I've seen, like these have been, I picked these up before Christmas. Why can't you get our words out? I picked these up before Christmas, so these won't be on people's best books, but there's a reason I've got them. I can't remember why, it's so long ago. Everyone is Still Alive, Kathy Rensenbrink. I actually remember, I think Mercedes read this and said it was really good. Welcome to Magnolia Road. When Juliet moves into her late mother's house, making friends with the neighbouring families is the last thing on her mind. Grief and guilt are weighing her down and work in motherhood is a juggle. But for her husband Liam, the morning coffees and after-school gatherings soon reveal the secret struggles, fears and rivalries playing out behind closed doors, all of which are perfect inspiration for his new novel. When the rupture of a marriage sends ripples through the group, painful home truths are brought to light. And then one sun-drenched afternoon, life overturns in an instant, and nothing on Magnolia Road will ever be the same again. I've got The Family Remains by Lisa Jewell. I have read The Family Upstairs. I don't remember a thing about it, and I think this is the sequel. And I think people were very much into it. So, London, June 2019, early morning, on the foreshore of the River Thames, a bag of bones is discovered. Human bones. D.I. Samuel Owosu quickly sends the bag for forensic examination. The bones are those of a young woman killed by a blow to the head many years ago. Also inside the bag are the seeds of a rare tree which leads D.I. Owosu to a mansion in Chelsea where nearly 30 years previously 3 people lay dead in a kitchen while a baby waited upstairs for someone to pick her up. That's the family upstairs. 4 deaths, an unsolved mystery, and a family whose secret history is darker than anyone can imagine. I wonder if I need to be familiar with what happened in The Family Upstairs, because I can't remember anything. Although I do remember it being set in like posh London. Maybe a case of like mistaken identity. I can't remember. Maybe. And then I've got Gillian McAllister's Wrong Place, Wrong Time. I got this, I remember, because it was on the oh no, that says BBC Radio 2 book club. I thought this was included in Between the Covers. Maybe it wasn't. Late October after midnight, you're waiting up for your son. He's late. As you watch from the window, he emerges and you realise he isn't alone. He's walking towards a man and he's armed. You can't believe it when you see him do it. Your funny, happy teenage son. He kills a stranger right there in the street outside your house. You don't know who, you don't know why. You only know your son is in custody, his future lost. That night you fall asleep in despair. All is lost until you wake. And it is yesterday. And then you wake again. And it's the day before yesterday. Every morning you wake up a day earlier, another day before the murder. Somewhere in the past lies an answer, the trigger for this crime and your only chance to fix the future and save your son. That does sound good. I was beginning to think, like, this sounds a bit samey, but that bloody sounds great. I don't think I've read anything else by Gillian McAllister. That sounds like a great one. This is another one that was from Between the Covers, Sometimes People Die by Simon Stevenson. Any second now, this room would be filled with raised voices, bloods, electric... Hold on, that's a quote from the book. The year is 1999. Returning to practice after a suspension for stealing opioids, a young Scottish doctor takes the only job he can find, a post as a senior house officer in a struggling East London hospital of St Luke's. Amid the maelstrom of sick patients, overworked staff and underfunded wards, a darker secret soon declares itself. Too many patients are dying. Could one of the hospital's medical professionals be behind the unexplained deaths? A literary crime novel that draws... This sounds fucking great. A literary crime novel that draws on the author's own experiences as a doctor, Sometimes People Die, pulls back the cubicle curtain to take the reader into the dark heart of hospital medicine. Oh, I'm adding that to the read as soon as possible page. And then I've got Trust by Hernan Diaz. This is... I've seen a lot of people talking about this and I'm very interested in it. The premise, it sounds like a book within a book within a book. Really like this front cover that sort of shows that these are spines of books, not spines, this bit of books with printed city on. Even through the roar and effervescence of the 1920s, everyone in New York has heard of Benjamin and Helen Rask. He is a legendary Wall Street tycoon. She is the daughter of eccentric aristocrats. Together they have risen to the very top of a world of seemingly boundless wealth as a decade of excess and speculation draws to an end. But at what cost have they acquired their immense fortune? This is a mystery at the centre of Bonds, a successful 1937 novel that all of New York seems to have read. Yet there are other versions of this tale of privilege and deceit. Hernan Diaz's Trust elegantly puts these competing narratives into the conversation with one another, and in tension with the perspective of one woman bent on disentangling fact from fiction. The result is a novel that spans over a century and becomes more exhilarating with each new revelation. At once an immersive story and a brilliant literary puzzle, Trust engages the reader in a quest for the truth while confronting the deceptions that often live at the heart of relationships, the reality warping force of capital and the ease with which power can manipulate facts. Bloody hell, they all sound good. When am I going to get a chance to read all of these? I've got to quit my job. And then from that last pile, so the last book I've got out from that library before we move on to the second library is The Long Song by Andrea Levy. I've read Small Island. Well, I actually listened to the audiobook of it and really enjoyed it. And yeah, this has no blurbs. This has no blurb. Oh, here we go. Oh, I can't really read it because it's got the library thing on it. Okay, I'll read what I can. You do not know me yet, but I'm the narrator of this work. My son, Thomas, who is printing this book, tells me it's customary at this place in the novel to give the reader a little taste of the story that is held within these pages. As your storyteller, I'm to convey that this is a tale set in Jamaica during the last turbulent years of slavery and the early years of freedom that followed. I don't know the name of the character, but someone is a slave girl, because this is stuck over it, who lives upon a sugar plantation named Amity something. It is her life that is the subject of this tale. She was there when the something war raged in 1831, and she was present when slavery was declared no more. My son says I must convey how the story also tells of July, that's her name, July's something Kitty, of the Negroes that worked on the plantation land, of Caroline Mortimer, the white woman who owned the plantation, and many more something beside. Far too many for me to list here, but what befalls them all is carefully chronicled upon these pages for you to peruse. Perhaps, my son suggests, I might write that it's a thrilling journey through that time in the company of people who lived it. All that he wishes me to pen so that the reader can decide if this novel they might care about to consider. Tja, I tell my son, what fuss. Come, let them just read it for themselves. That's a great intro, isn't it? And this is a lovely front cover. I was saying, I love these naked hardbacks. That sounds great. Okay, so that's that library done. Christ knows where I'm going to keep all of these. Let's move on to actually the smallest pile of the lot. Let's do it. These books I actually showed very briefly in my Friday reading vlog. So the last Friday reading vlog you would have seen, I showed these because I'd been to the library to pick them up. So you might be thinking, oh, I've seen these before. I didn't read any blurbs though. and maybe I just did a little dip in. I've got Tale of the Bluebird by Ni Ayeki Parks. Sonocrom, a village in the Ghanaian hinterland, has not changed for hundreds of years. Here the men and women speak the language of the forest, drink aphrodisiacs with their palm wine and walk along the spirits of their ancestors. The discovery of sinister remains, possibly human, definitely evil, and the disappearance of a local man brings the intrusion of the city in the form of Kao, a young forensic pathologist convinced that scientific logic can shatter even the most inexplicable of mysteries. As old and new worlds clash and clasp, and Kao and his sidekick, Constable Garber, delve deeper into the case, they discover a truth that leaves scientific explanations far behind. That sounds bloody brilliant. Then Swimming in the Dark by Thomas Jedrowski. Love that front cover. This is set in Poland in 1980. Shy, anxious Ludwig has been sent along with the rest of his university class to an agricultural camp. Here he meets Janusz, and together they spend a dreamlike summer falling in love. But with summer over, and the two are sent back to Warsaw. Confronted by the... I thought that was my mother. Confronted by the scrutiny, intolerance and corruption of life under the party, Ludwig and Janusz must decide how they will survive, and in their different choices find themselves torn apart. I've already got this, so you'll know what this is. So I had this in hardback from my other library, but it's now out in paperback, which is much more readable. This is In the Shadow of Queens by Alison Vere. You would have seen last year that I did a reading vlog series where I read all of the books in the 6 Tudor Queens series. This is a sort of a company short story collection. So Alison Weir's written a couple of short stories per queen, and now they've all been pulled together. I think they were released as ebooks to start with, and I will be reading this as a sort of like final part of that reading vlog. Wonder when I'll do that. Maybe February? Maybe. Yeah, maybe February. And then I've got Crossing the Mangrove by Maurice Condé. It said, Francis Sancho always said he would come to an unnatural end, so when this handsome newcomer to the Guadeloupean village of Rivière-au-Sel is found dead, face down in the mud, no one is particularly surprised. Loved by some and revealed by others, Francis was an enigmatic figure. Where did he come from? What caused his strange nocturnal wanderings? What devils haunted him? As the villagers come to pay their respects, they each reveal another piece of the mystery behind his life and death, and their own buried secrets and stories come to light. It says here that she is the author, Maurice Condé, the Grand Queen, the Empress of Caribbean fiction. And Bernardine Evaristo has said, an extraordinary storyteller. There we go. Then I've got The Saint of Lost Things by Tish Delaney. So those ones were ones that I put reservations on. These ones were just on the new books shelf, these two. I've actually got this out before and then never got around to reading it. This is another one. She's getting ahead of the times here. This is one I thought I could read for the Irish Readathon. The Saint of Lost Things by Tish Delaney. Tish is, I think, Northern Ireland. Brought up in Northern Ireland at the height of the Troubles. And relocated to England. So it says, there was a time when Lindy Morris escaped to London and walked along the Thames in the moonlight when life was full and exciting. Decades later, Lindy lives back with her Aunt Belle on the edge of Donegal and on the edge of Grandad Morris's land. Grandad Morris is a complicated man, a farmer who wanted sons but got 2 daughters, Auntie Belle and Lindy's mother, who disappeared long ago. Now Lindy and Belle live the smallest of lives in a cottage full of unfulfilled dreams. But when the secrets they have kept for 30 years emerge, everything is rewritten. Will Lindy grasp who she is again? Yes, I'll be reading that during the Irish Readathon. Then I picked up Black England by Gretchen Gazina. It says here, A Forgotten Georgian History. It's got a foreword in here by Zadie Smith. And it says, the idea that Britain become a mixed race country after 1945 is a common mistake. Georgian England has a large and distinctive black community. Whether prosperous citizens or newly freed slaves, they all ran the risk of kidnap and sell to the plantations. Black England tells their dramatic, often moving stories. In the 18th century, black people could be found in clubs and pubs. There were special churches, black-only balls and organisations for helping black people who were out of work or in trouble. Many were famous and respected, most notably Francis Barber, Dr. Johnson's beloved manservant, Ignatius Sancho, who I've heard a lot about recently. He's had a book written about him recently, a correspondence of Lawrence Sterne, Francis Williams, a Cambridge scholar, and Oloja Equiano, whose interesting narrative went into multiple editions. But far more were ill-paid and ill-treated servants or beggars, despite having served Britain in war and on the seas. For alongside the free world, there was slavery, for which many of these black Britons had escaped. The triumphs and tortures of Black England, the ambivalent relations between the races, sometimes tragic, sometimes heartwarming, are brought to life in this wonderfully readable history. Black England explores a fascinating chapter of our shared past, a chapter that has been ignored too long. Does sound good, doesn't it? And it's got pictures, which I love, of these. Oh, there is Charles Ignatius Sancho. So yeah, that sounds great. And then the last book is a book that I'm also going to be using in my Friday reading vlog, so you've got this to look forward to as well. This is the Little Library Cookbook. This is 100 recipes from your favourite stories, written by Kate Young. I was aware of this book because I own the Christmas version of this, but I've barely looked into it. And what it is it's adorable recipes from books. So for example, I've opened it here on bread, butter and honey, and this is from the book I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith. And it's got the little quote here where it mentions it. So it says, "I shouldn't think even millionaires could eat anything nicer than new bread and real butter and honey for tea." But there's loads in here. So Toad in the Hole from The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 3 3/4, by Sue Townsend. Crab and Avocado Salad from The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Cold Apple Pie from The Railway Children by E. Nesbitt. And yeah, I'm going to be cooking something out of here, baking something out of here on my Friday reading vlog. And the food photography is beautiful as well. It's very sort of simplistic and gorgeous. Let me find one so I can... I say simplistic, I mean this is a page full of delicious baked goods. But yeah, just feels very nicely pulled together. So, that's my library haul. God, my bum's hurting from sitting on the floor for so long. If you've made it this far, congrats. And let me know what you've been getting out from the library recently. And I'll speak to you all again soon for another booktube video. Goodbye.